Welcome to the second part of creating a movement saving the sea otters. On this episode, I had the opportunity to interview the renowned environmental activist Andrea Treese.
Sure. I'm Andrea Treese. I'm a senior attorney in the Earth Justice Oceans program, and I've been doing this type of work for, about 20 years now. Specialize in mostly in endangered species protection and fisheries management and marine conservation, basically.
In this organization, which is a nonprofit organization, they are able to address its concerns about the environment, such as endangered habitats, and they are able to develop and analyze a case based on its risk factors. So the higher the risk, the more willing they are to take the case. In this case, they were able to work with the Endangered Species Act to prevent the further extinction of the Californian sea otter, which will be discussed throughout this interview. Now, since we have our introductions out of the way, let's dive straight into the interview.
Do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy your job?
No, it can be, it can certainly be tough because it's kind of it's the challenges are always there. They don't go away, but I do really enjoy it because for one, I'm kind of a bio geek at heart. Like I love that I get to actually look into science and kind of use that in my cases too. And I also, because we represent other nonprofits and other community groups, like I get to work with a lot of really passionate, cool people who, really care about these issues and are really pretty brilliant in a lot of cases too. And thankfully also have good senses of humor because you need that in this field.
Yes, you do. I'm also a science geek myself because I'm going to major in atmospheric sciences, which is meteorology, like predicting the weather and stuff. So I'm like connected with this too. And I don't know if this is another thing, but I was actually born on Earth Day. So I don't know if that like connects with anything, but I just found that to be really strange. Like, oh, I want to go in meteorology, and I'm born on Earth Day, so I mean,
that's awesome. It was meant to be.
Yes. So for the first question, like, what inspired you to become to advocate for these endangered species whose habitats are threatened by man-made causes?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Florida and near the coast, and kind of our family pastime was basically going and snorkeling on patch reefs, going to the beach, and my parents were nature lovers, and they taught us a lot about the animals and the plants that we were seeing and how they interacted. And so I grew up with just a real love and respect for nature. And it was just such a great source of joy and also just of solace to me growing up that I always just kind of felt like I owed it to all the critters and the places that supported me to try and protect them.
Yeah, because in a way, in a sense, these animals actually help us because we get we get everything from them, like food, and then they just they essentially clean up after ourselves because we could tend to be very messy, and it's like they do the hard work for us, so they help us a great deal.
Seriously, yeah, exactly. It's like the kelp forests out here. They're like cleaning up our carbon dioxide emissions. Like help them out.
It's like boarding experience you've had with these cases. Like, what do you feel like you've accomplished the most in helping these endangered environments?
You know, I'd say the case that the case that stands out to me is just the first case I ever had at Earth Justice, which concerned these water projects that basically move huge amounts of water from Northern California down to Southern California for agricultural and urban uses. And when I came into Earth Justice, I inherited an Endangered Species Act case that had to do with protecting the Delta smelt and impacts on its habitat from just basically sucking fresh water out of its estuarine habitat. And as you might tell from the name, it's, Delta smelt is not like, it's not that charismatic. It's not a whale. It's not fuzzy.
What exactly?
But, it's like this cool little fish that's an indicator of the health of its ecosystem, and they smell like cucumbers, which I think is really cool.
Oh, that's funny.
But you know, it was like just very, there was a lot of science to learn. There was a lot about the just technically how the water system worked to learn. I had to learn the law, but it was really engaging. Like I got to really just dive into that wholeheartedly and just dig up evidence and build a really good record for that case. And even though we had a judge who wasn't really known to be that friendly to environmental causes, he ended up ruling for us, and at least, you know, for that, for a period of time, like putting in some extra protections to protect these little guys and, you know, make sure they have some fresh water to, you know, breed and live their lives in. And you know, these cases tend to always keep going. There's some version of this case still going. But you know, we're sort of like inching things forward over time, and it's kind of what it's
seeing
all
it
about.
develop over time.
Yeah, yeah.
So like all work, like how does the process of like developing like sort of work? Like is there a certain strategy that you use for these cases, or do you just like provide the research and then evidence and then go straight to court, or like how does that work?
Yeah, reasons we would even look at something like that is, you know, we've determined that a species needs extra help, or it's really important. It's sort of like a signal for its ecosystem. So if we can protect that species, and you know, we can protect its habitat as well, and the other animals that depend on it, or the animals and plants that depend on it. So that's kind of, you know, part of how we would choose cases. And then there's a lot of reaching out to scientists and really understanding the science behind it, because I mean, anything we do has got to be based on sound science, or it's just not. It's not.
Yeah, pretty much all the evidence is science based.
Yeah, those cases tend to take a while. I mean, they tend to, even just for one case to play out, to go from filing the case to sort of getting the record or the evidence, and then, you know, writing all the briefs and the arguments, and then going, you know, talking to the judge at the hearing about it. That can be a couple of years.
I think are the most important environmental issues that we face today.
I think, I mean, it's the big, I mean, the big issues are, you know, obviously climate change is a huge one.
Yeah.
It's inescapable. It affects literally everything.
And pollution.
And
littering also is a big one too.
Oh yeah, plastics. I mean, that's a huge problem. I mean, when we have something like, I just like looked at a study the other day that was like, you know, there's most of our seafood now has microplastics in it, which is, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good.
You know?
In your sea otter case, you mentioned that like the sea otters had an influence on the atmospheric CO2 levels. And like, is there a specific way that you guys analyze these this data?
Yeah, I mean, I think mostly we were looking at studies that I think, for example, University of California at Santa Barbara had a study that talked about basically how much, you know, like how much CO2 a healthy kelp bed can store. And we know from really well established science that otters are key to the health of these kelp beds.
Are otters like the filter for the CO2 for the kelp? Like, do they filter out like the toxins in the kelp?
Basically, the kelp takes up CO2 when it photosynthesizes.
Oh, okay.
And so it's taking up CO2. A lot of CO2 goes into the ocean, and so the kelp takes that up and stores it. But what the otters do for the kelp is they eat urchins, especially, which otherwise love to basically, like, they will literally like mow down a kelp bed. Urchin.
In the Endangered Species Act, how would you describe its importance to the struggling ecosystems? Like, how does it help? Has it helped some ecosystems?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the Endangered Species Act is the most powerful environmental statute we have, really. It's the strongest environmental law we have. And it's aimed at both protecting individual species, but also the habitat they rely on. So it provides a really, it can provide a really strong tool. Big significance of that was really in making sure that those otters that are down in Southern California aren't, you know, artificially kept this island or two that they're located on, that they're just allowed to do what otters do, make more otters and expand their range, which they need to do in order to recover as a species. And they all
How can members of an environmental activist community like help stop these man-made threats from threatening endangered species their habitat?
Well, you know, I think that what you're doing now is actually an incredibly important step. Like it might sound basic, but just like
reaching out and like just telling your audience that, hey, look, this is what's going on. This is how we can fix it.
Yeah, and I mean, and also really just helping the folks connect. Like if you as someone who cares about the environment, you know, if you're learning about the issues that are even going on right around in your town or your county, and you are, you know, helping people connect with nature around you so they care about it, you know, even if you're just talking about like how cool this one critter is and how it's like really like it's this amazing critter and it helps people and like how it's important to them, and presenting that information that's accurate and doesn't make people instantly feel sort of like guilty, but just makes them care. Like I know it probably sounds basic, but it's such an important step to just getting people to then listen to everything else you have to say, because once they care, then they're going to be more willing to hear you out when you're like, okay, and here's the problem with this, and here's, you know, how we can help address this. I took a sea turtle biology course in grad school, and we had to do necropsies on sea turtles. So, you know, sea turtles that had washed up already deceased. And, you know, so we basically did sort of a post-mortem,
like a dissection.
Thank you. I was searching for the word. And every single one of them had plastic in its gut, and which just broke my heart. Like, you know, like, don't release balloons for your birthday. You know?
Yeah, don't do that.
Like it's, you know, like it seems harmless, and yet there's a sea turtle with, you know, that in its gut. So
yeah, it seems like really nice talking to you. I just want to thank you for this opportunity to interview you. Like it was really helpful for my project. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been really fun.
So thank you for this opportunity, and I'll try to do what I can to advocate for this endangered species through my YouTube video. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.